Hello, 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 hello. As I always say, good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Whenever you see this podcast, it is your girl working out with Wanda, Jaquell. I am here. Um, I always have conversations with um my producer, and I don't always get teary eyed. But here's the thing: I just feel like I'm coming on a year, you guys. I'm coming up on a year. And I was reflecting on honestly how good God has been this whole entire time. Um, One of the blessings that God did was I connected with Dr. Driver, Shalonda Driver, First Lady Driver, who connected me with Amira. And she did an amazing, I wear my other shirt too, but she made me a Working Out with Wanda podcast shirt within like 24, 48 hours. And I have to give her a shout out because this is gorgeous. But I wanted to touch bases on a few things. I wanted to talk to you all about what this whole year looks like, right? With Working Out with Wanda. And it's probably going to be 2 episodes. So brace yourself. And I want to recap because I want us to know where we started, how did it work in the middle, and where do we see ourselves for 2026. Um, and let's start from the beginning. So, Working Out with Wanda podcast came about with my husband and I having a conversation. Now, prior to that, I was already having Working Out with Wanda, which was given a name to me by my spiritual father, Dr. Demetrius Robinson, who was in one of my workout classes, and he was like, I cannot hang with her. And we were at church, and he was like, and next week you're going to have Working Out with Wanda. And I was like, I like that name. I like that name. And so that's what it started. And as we became with the podcast, my husband and I were just, he said, write these things down about focusing on mental health, dealing with grieving. How do you deal with this? How do you deal with that? And this is around the beginning of October. And he was writing down about how our youth is so affected and how if we can try to embrace the Black and brown community, the good things that can come out of us, recognizing and understanding that grief is not just dealing with someone, it's also dealing with some things. A few weeks after that, my husband um, was passed away, but we're still waiting for justice to be served, and I'll say it in that sense. Um, and I put that book of what we wanted to do away. And I put it away because I was like, oh, this was going to be a podcast of a couple, power couple. And unfortunately, that didn't work that way, right? So here is God telling me, go back and open up that book. And this whole year, God wanted me to live out what my podcast was supposed to be about, right? That doesn't make a lot of sense to some people. But I believe in being obedient. I believe in trusting God no matter what. I believe in that my faith can soar beyond of what I can imagine, right? And so during this whole year, I'm starting in 2025 up to now, God has allowed me to have wonderful guests on my show, allow me to pour, allow me to release, allow me to reflect, and also, most importantly, allow an opportunity for everybody that is around me to understand what it really looks like. And some episodes came upon because it could have been a conversation with me and my producer. Shout out to Tone TDR Network, who does an amazing job. He's also a coach and mentor and things of that nature. Like y'all see him on my show sometimes. I had him as a guest. I had Pastor Marlon Locke um, as a guest on my show, who really like he just went boom, set a bomb up in this place. Okay, not literally, but he set it off to the fact of us to really understand from the spiritual aspect of why we talk about normalizing Jesus in therapy. Trying to think some of the other guests I had on my show. Um I had a lot of people from TDR Network. I had I call him Mr. G from TGMJ4 on the podcast. Um, I even had some of my family. Oh, I had Miss Tricell from Good Morning, Great Ministries, and the list goes on and on, right? Um, oh, I have to give a shout out. I also had Mr. Dante Washington, wonderful, 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 wonderful coach, motivational leader and speaker. He like really, you guys don't know the guests that I had on my show, they were really ministering to me. um, and the different guests that we had on the show talking about the different events. I just want to just thank every person that allowed themselves to be open and allows themselves to speak. Because in this first year, when you're going through, when you're the loss of someone or something, right? Mine was losing my husband, and it doesn't seem like it's just the loss of my husband. It was like after that, then this happened, then this happened, then this happened, then this happened, and then something else. Oh Lord, that happened. Oh, why did this happen over here? And it seems like we're in this huge barrel, and I'm at the bottom. And just when I get to the top of the barrel, something else try to pulls me down. And when I get to the top again, something else pulls me down. And it puts you in a mode of like, okay, why do I have to go through this? Why am I going through this? What have I done to deal with this? And why? I say it like that because I use an example from my job, and every time we present something, I have one staff member that's always, but why? Why we got to do? Why we got to? And then I laugh because I'm like, sometimes that's how I talk to God, like, God, why me? Why am I going through this? Why do I have to go through this? Is it something that, because let's be real, sometimes you do a self reflection and you're wondering if you're going through all of this stuff because maybe it was something that I did. Maybe, maybe I got into this car accident because maybe something happened and I wasn't obedient to God, because church also reflective. Are you being obedient to him? Did you obey him? Maybe you're doing something wrong, right? But sometimes it's about the tests and trials of our faith. And I will say 2025, really 2024, let me back all the way up to 2020, was tests and trials. And I felt like, God, this is unbearable. When we talk about mental health, a lot of us feel like, okay, I'm just going to trust in God and that's it. And there's nothing wrong with that. There are some of us that are saying, it's okay if I go talk to a therapist. It's okay if I go and talk to someone, because sometimes I just got to get this out. Maybe if I say this vocally, it'll make sense to what I need to do, or maybe it'll make more sense as to what's happening in my life. Maybe it'll make sense later on down the road. I just need to get this off of me, because a lot of times what we have been doing is holding so much stuff in to where we're in rage mode. Remember, we talked about that in 2025. We talk about the anger. We talked about the acceptance versus the dealing with it. And so I'm dealing with it, right? But when I'm dealing with it, I'm just laying, remember I use the analogy of being in that rock boat and letting the waves carry me. I'm just gonna deal with however this flow is. But when I accept it, I acknowledge my emotions. I acknowledge what I'm feeling in that moment. I acknowledge how I'm doing in that moment. I acknowledge the fact that I'm not okay today. I'm not the best. And I'm acknowledging it so that I can say, okay, let me do what I need to do to recalibrate myself. Maybe I just need to just have a solemn moment where I'm not interrupted. Maybe I just don't need to have anyone around me at the time. Maybe I just need to clear my mind. Maybe I just need to just watch something else on TV, watch this, watch that, do this, do that, do something out of the norm so that I can put myself back in alignment. What does that look like? And so this year of 2025, if I could be transparent, it was hard. It felt hard. It was hard. It was hard a lot of times because I was pushing through pain, pushing through discomfort, pushing through moments of sadness, pushing through and trying to really put myself in a place where I can be vocal, separating what people thought about me versus what God thought about me. When you're going through in the grieving stats, and once again, whether it's dealing with people, places, or things, um, you're always in a limbo of questions. You set yourself in a limbo of trying to understand who I am, how I can be better, what can I do, what am I learning from this situation. And 2025 has put me in a place where I was smiling, but I was still crying behind the tears. And most importantly, I was being tested and I was still trusting God no matter what. I didn't know how my tomorrow was going to be. I didn't understand a lot of things that were happening in my life. I did not want certain things to happen, but it still happened. But God was pushing me into a place of peace. And for the longest time, I would say maybe up to around October, November of 2025, I was dealing with a lot of anxiety and fear off and on, right? Because of what happened to my husband. I started getting nervous for my children. I started getting nervous of when I had to leave and when I had to go out and when I had to go here and when I had to go there because something happened to me. What does this realistically look like? Okay, do I always have to watch my back? Do people really know? Do anybody know this? Do anybody know that? Like it starts to be where I couldn't sleep at night. And these things happen to us sometimes unknowingly because we are in a place where sometimes it seems like we're trying to prove, once again, proving myself to people. What does people say, think about me? How does that fit in my life? What is God saying about me? How does that fit in my life? I can't do both. I can't please both. I can't do both things. So I have to be at a place where Jaquell is saying to herself, girl, you good today. You are good. Throughout the year 2025, God was using me to minister and witness to people. I thank you to every person that was inboxing me, sending me inboxes saying, I didn't even realize I was dealing with this situation. One of the most things that God really broke down to me, I was like, every time I was doing a podcast, I was like, I was overcoming this, overcoming that, overcoming this. Like, yes, Jaquell, we're doing a good job. Ooh, rock on, yes. But understanding that God was putting me in situations, and I don't say like he was forcing me in these things, but I was being tested in various situations of how do I overcome? How do I deal with it? How are you going to present yourself? Not before people, not before social media, not before any of those platforms. Because those platforms can do a lot, right? It could either tarnish us, people are going to give their feedback, people are going to say this, that, and the third. And a lot of people don't understand that when you're trying to quote unquote prove yourself to people, you will not be successful. And sometimes that's a part of grieving because I want you to see the best in me, but you sometimes can't see it because you're always reflecting on my past. You're always reflecting on how I was, how I used to be. And then don't let the hearsays come in. Now, everybody looking at all the different stuff that, well, they said this, they said that, and it's just feelings and not facts. But we're still trying to prove ourselves. We're still trying to see maybe they'll love me if I do blah, blah, blah. Maybe I'll be accepted if I do this. Maybe I'll be accepted if I do that. And that's not what God has for us. Because people will always regurgitate your past. I'm dealing with all these things, and you have the audacity to come to me with negativity. But in spite of, I feel that I come out victorious. I come out victorious because, God, I trust you no matter what. I come out victorious because I lean not to my own understanding. I come out victorious because I understand this is the situation. This is what I can control. This is what I cannot control. The things that I cannot control, Jaquell, we are in the waves of acceptance where I am taking control of these handles. I am taking control and I can roll this boat. Some waves may be harder than others. Sometimes the sailing of the boat, the pressure and everything may be out of whack, but I'm not going to let go because I believe that I can do all things through Christ that strengthens me. What does that realistically look like, though? Jaquell, you've been dealing with a lot of stuff. I am living, literally a living testimony. And in my life, I was able to really dissect who God was, especially with these last year. God has really shown himself to be the I am that I needed in my life. I found myself being similar to my mom, who was a strong, courageous woman. I said was, is. Excuse me, she is a strong, courageous woman. Get it right, Jaquel. Okay. I was 14 when I lost my father. And I saw the example of my mom, who was an evangelist in the church, a hardworking woman, just finished school, was in the middle of going back to school for surgical tech, raising four minors, three teenagers, and one preteen. And she still had to hold all these hats, hold it together, and still present herself as a mom, present herself at the church as the evangelist, present herself at the job as the hard worker, present herself as the sister, as the daughter, as the auntie, all these different things. And I said, Lord, how does she do it? Because I'm like, I don't know how I can make it this far. I don't know how it's working for me. And I just have one child. I don't know how she was able to go to work and still hold her head up high, and go here and go there and still hold her head up high, and deal with this and deal with that and still hold her head up high. I literally had to call my mom some days like, Mom, I don't know. I don't know how you deal with this. How can I help? Can you help me with this? How can you help me with that? I had to reach out to my mother. I reached out to my apostle, a woman who I didn't know until she shared her testimony one day about how she lost her husband and how she had to navigate through all those different hats. So one or 2 days, hey, I feel like it's overwhelming. Is that normal? And I want to say all that to say it's okay for us to reach out to people that's not going to judge us, that's not going to make us feel less than, that's not going to put us out there like, oh my gosh, she called me again. Oh my gosh, she texted me again. No, these are people that say, I've been where you've been. I want to help you. I want you to be better. I don't want you to follow in the slumps of depression. I don't want you to follow in the slumps of anxiety. I don't want you to go and use any forms of substance abuse to make you feel better or make you feel like now that you're sober minded when you're real in reality you're not. I don't want you to be dependent and inform addictions unnecessarily. I don't want you to put on the guilt. That coat of guilt is heavy, and it'll sit there and it'll sit there and it'll sit there and it will sit there every day. It's guilt brings on depression, and it'll sit there and sit there. And I'm going to keep saying that because sometimes you're stuck, you can't move. But I had wonderful people in my life that even though I was going through different things, I had strong women, strong men that would encourage and empower. I'm all about advocating, empowering, and educating. And God allowed the year of 2025 that even as I pour out to people, He will allow people to pour back into me. Because it's not easy. And a lot of times we go into isolation because we don't know how important it is for us to, and I want to say this respectfully, okay? Black and brown communities, we don't believe that of opening the doors and being transparent, because we've been brought up in that what goes in my house stays in my house. Don't you tell nobody nothing. Don't you tell them this. Don't you tell them that. Don't you go through this. Don't you go through that. And even as you're going through certain stuff and you're trying to figure out why, they're still telling you be quiet. Don't do that. You better not cry. You better not do this. You better not do that. It's unacceptable. We allowed ourselves to deal with it for years because that's what we thought was okay. We thought that it was okay, or we had to do it that way because if we put people in our business, it will go like wildfire. And that's true. That's true. There are people that will spread your business abroad. But then there are some gems and jewels, some diamonds that will come and nurture and encourage and embrace you and let you know that you're not by yourself. Sometimes, and this word was given to me from my apostle, and I heard it recently when I was taking a class. They said, give yourself grace, grace. Be intentional. My apostle told me, be intentional about your grieving. Be intentional. Be aware when you're in that moment because that's the only way that you're able to push it out. That's the only way that we're able to really push things out is when we're aware that, I'm not okay. This is triggering me. This is putting me in, making me feel uneasy, uncomfortable. And when we recognize that, what happens? Now we're able to navigate on how to deal with those emotions, how to deal with this, how to deal with that, how to think soberly because I'm able to recognize what it is in front of me. It's hard when you feel like you're alone. It's hard when it's hard to trust people. But as I take off the layers, even in the process of grieving, you begin to find out who we can and who we can't work with. We begin to understand what we can and can't do. If this person is trustworthy or not. Okay, well, if this person ain't trustworthy, I'm going to go on to the other side. I'm going to do what else I got to do over there. Why am I doing those things? Why am I dealing with this? Why am I dealing with that? I'm putting myself and I'm recognizing because I don't want to keep having the spirit of heaviness just reigning over me. The Bible talks about to put on the garment of praise and release the spirit of heaviness. But if I'm still holding on to it, like Linus, what was that from Charlie Brown? He was always dragging that doggone dirty blanket. Everywhere he went, that blanket was going with that. And I know that blanket was dirty because he was dragging it on the ground. But can you imagine? That's how many of us do right now. That's how many of us are dealing with it right now. That's how many of us, we're still holding on to a lot of things that we have no power or control over. We are holding on to stuff and it's dragging behind us. It's dragging because we won't let it go. We are holding on as if I hold on to it, it makes me feel better. If I hold on to it, I don't have to worry about, you know, what others may think or say. If I hold on to it, I can just cry to myself about it. If I hold on to it, I can just, I do the inward pain, but your body is not able to release it. Your body's holding on to it. Now we're developing hypertension, uh, increased glucose, so now we have diabetes. We're dealing with migraines and headaches. We're developing more, even because a lot of stuff has trickled from childhood. And because we did not recognize and we did not allow those things to be dealt with at that time, once again, because we would go to my house, stay in my house. So we held on to a lot of things and we brought so much damage to our body that many of us have even developed cancer because we held on to bitterness, unforgiveness, and we never let those things go. So this whole first year, we were bringing up and recognizing all of these things, compiling all of these things together. And we brought all these things to a forefront like this. Why? To show people this is what the grief looks like. This is how everything's here. If I brought all my bags and all my stuff, or even if we just had an example of everything just sitting on the table, if this table was filled, this will be how much all the things that we're holding in and how much damage is this causing to our body. How much of that are we weighing on ourselves, weighing on the brain, and we can't even sleep at night because we have all these things that we're constantly thinking about, not being able to release and go to sleep, not being able to rest. We're dealing with all medical conditions now. Some of us are even dealing with insomnia because of all of the grief that we're holding in. And how does this affect us mentally, right? Right? We're triggered. And I'm not saying that loosely, but it's a term that's being used so much that to the point where almost everything has been affecting us. It triggers us back to something from childhood. It triggers back to a past relationship. It triggers of something that was said, done, that you embrace and that you felt and that you allowed to come into your space. And now you don't know how to let it go. So now you understand what my first year looked like, right? So now you understand this whole first year of podcast. We wanted to recognize and bring it to your attention how important these things is weighing us down. It's weighing us down. And we can't do healthy lifestyle, healthy living, healthy breathing because I have so much weight on me. And this ain't even talking about the physical weight. This is talking about the weight of our grief. So the year of 2025, you guys have allowed this space to open. And on our part two, I just want to talk about what are we looking for? How do we end our first year and what are we going to excel for this year? Praise be to God who always causes us to triumph, but how do we triumph? How do we get over these things? How do we move forward? What doors can God do to open for you for us to push past our pain, to push past the burdens? We don't have to carry the weight. Erica Badu had the best song, Bag a Lady, You Gonna Hurt Yourself. I'm gonna hurt myself. I'm gonna tell you why. Because I have unnecessary weight that's not for me. I have baggage that's not needed in my life. If we're saying that God will put no more on us than we can bear, why are we bearing it? And I'm not saying it to you to be fussy, but this is the conversation that me and God had. Because God checks me like that. Jaquell, why are you carrying the load, the weight? This is not in your control. You can't carry that. You can't manage unnecessary things. If what was said true about your husband, shame on him. But that's out of your power. That's out of your control. What were you doing? If the way that your job did you, shame on them. We're not gonna go back and forth. Oh, hey, you got into a car accident. Shame on that. You have to look at what is it that you want me to do, God? Even in this pain that I'm bearing. From 2020 to 2025 was a Job experience. And I think the year of 2024 really took into a kick, like what everyone you say, kick it up a notch into 2025. And now we're ready to soar. We're ready to release and let go. We are ready to give our burdens to the Lord. So come back for part two as I talk about what are we going to do, how are we going to do it, how do we start off January 2026, what was our motives, what are we going to do this year, because I want you to be blessed. I don't want you to be stagnant in the pains and the sorrows. I want you guys to know how to move strategically, mentally, spiritually, emotionally, and physically to get out of bondage. Until next time, you won't give up. You're not going to do it. You won't give in. You will not abort what God has predestined over your life. You are more than a conqueror. Stay strong. You got this. Until next time, thank you for joining me.